All right, I'm going to hit. Hi, Dr. Rob.
Hi,
I
hi,
know.
Tammy.
He just got back from a walk, those of you
I
tuning. So, okay.
did a long walk. Okay.
So, when was cheating a choice? My PA began cheating in college, and then he began using sex workers after college. So sorry. After college, he states he had a long-term porn use. I think the choice part really makes it hard to understand. Some podcasts say that sex addictions change their brains. Oh, there's so much there in that short little
Yeah,
piece.
there's like 12 questions in there. So it's counterintuitive. You gave me that word. Cheating is always a choice. It's always a choice to make whatever decisions as adult we make. That doesn't mean that that doesn't mean addiction doesn't exist, but it does mean people in recovery can make other choices. So I know that it is a choice because you can choose other things. However, without treatment, without help, without direction, without support, people just keep doing the same things that they've always done. And yes, that is a brain issue. You know, when I used to smoke cigarettes, when I would have a cup of coffee, I wanted that cigarette. I wanted that cigarette. And it took a long time. And it was a choice to smoke, but I was miserable without it. And then I learned to not smoke. But the coffee, anyway, the other piece is that yes, my brain does not work the same as healthy people. Absolutely. For many, many reasons, and we don't have time to go into it, I use sex, I do, as a means of escaping my feelings and calming myself down. And other people go for a walk. Other people talk to a friend. That is not what natively comes up for me inside. What comes up for me inside is go find somebody to make you feel better. That's what comes up inside. But I want you to understand this. Alcoholism, these are addictions. Do I choose to have a drink? Sure. Can I stop drinking when I'm compulsively alcoholic? Not on my own. So is it a choice to drink? Yes. Do I have any power of it? No. The choice is, am I willing to go get help? The choice is, I don't want to live this way anymore, and I will do whatever I can to make it different. That is a choice. And through making that choice, things change. And yeah, this is a sex addict. You know, this is someone who had problems going, I don't know how old they are, but going back to college, cheating on everybody, sex workers. I actually call this person a garbage can sex addict because they tried a little bit of everything. It's like going in the dumpster and pulling this out and pulling that out. But so if that helps any, and the other thing I want to say is, how could you love me and do this at the same time? It's the same thing. Believe it or not, I can love you and I can drink. I can love you and I can gamble. The issue for us is that it's so deeply personal and betrayal for you spouses. And it's very hard, if not impossible, for you to separate out the fact that we did it from taking it as personally as you do, which I completely understand. But if I was an alcoholic or I was a heroin addict and I couldn't stop and I was hurting you in the family, it would be painful, but it would be a different kind of pain. Um, yeah. So, Tammy, I'm sure there's a lot more you could say.
Oh, well, I was thinking, you talk about he began cheating in college, and and Dr. Rob, talked about it a bit, but if this is a maladaptive coping mechanism, I don't know how to do life without my compulsive behaviors, and the garbage can applies. I mean, whatever form it is, whether it's alcohol or sex or porn or gambling or whatever it is, it's feeding the same thing. Dr. Rob said it, like, I'm looking for somebody else or something else to make me feel okay with me, and whatever that is. So the compartmentalization is really strong. And we talk all the time about, addiction. The biggest component of this is denial. I lie to myself, I lie to you, I lie to everybody else because I don't know how to do life on life's terms. So I hear that he began cheating in college. I suspect, with the guys that come to our treatment program, that we do a lot of assessment. We're looking at things holistically, and there's typically the whatever the wounding is happened before age 10. So there was probably some ways of escaping, long before even college, that were being utilized. And while all of that is an interesting part of the pattern, the work of recovery is how do I stop the problematic behaviors now and then start addressing these underlying issues, but doing it so that I'm supported and can move forward in a different way. So I also agree with Dr. Rob. Talked about how it's so painful and hurtful for partners, but I really think it's a misperception. And I think I've heard this with partners, that perceive that the addict goes, I'm gonna get you really good today. I'm gonna go out and cheat, and like it's intentional and planned and really against you, rather than in my brokenness. I can't tell you how many days I go, today is going to be different, and then I would find myself doing the exact same thing, and I'd be going, how the heck did this happen? Well, I learned, and I learned to have tools to be able to do it differently. But and yes, it's a choice, man. When you're living in it, it sure didn't feel like it. I absolutely could not stop myself until I got help, and then I've lived a very different life. So anything else to add to that one?
Well, just that I think one thing to maybe take a little bit out of all, make it more sense, is that most addicts have other addictive issues. Excuse me. Tammy often says it's like whack-a-mole. Somebody stops drinking and then they start eating, or somebody puts the food down and then they start masturbating. And so, I think it may be helpful to think about it, that it truly is the underlying stuff that pushes this, and what's above the surface, the problem can show up in a whole variety of ways. And yes, it is us trying to cope with what's going on underneath. But you got to deal with behavior first, because I could deal with every kind of trauma and issue I ever had, and I would feel better that I know all about it, and I might cry a lot, but I'm still going to act out. You got to deal with that piece first.
Yes.
Tammy, I want you to start answer the next question,
Oh,
because I
okay.
bet you have as better answers than me even.
I happy to, and I'm getting ready to hit send on the work group too. So what are some good resources,
Right.
namely books and meetings for porn addicts exclusively? I've been working through Facing the Shadow workbook for a while, and I noticed SA and PA are very closely intertwined, but I was just wondering if there's specific resources for PAs. Yes. And I was just emailing somebody about this. I'm going to hit send on so in the chat, I put the online work groups. In fact, I think I was talking about this before the meeting started, but yes, we have online work groups. So these are not therapy. These are not treatment. These are psychoeducation, which just means it's live facilitated, it's educational. You'll have some good information. Many therapists suggest that their clients participate in these, as well as do the therapy with them. And our alumni that come to our residential treatment program, wrong corner, also participate in many of these. But we separated the porn addiction. So for those that are exclusively utilizing online technology rather than in person, the Porn Addiction 101 Part 1 starts again in August. So check that out, 6-week course. And there's a Porn Addicts Anonymous, there's a Porn Addicts workbook that goes with that. Dr. Rob can I tell him that? Well, I'm going to. He's working on a porn addiction book. So he's got Sex Addiction 101, which is a great book and much more user-friendly than some of the other books out there. But the porn addiction will be specifically around the porn addiction and online non-physical contact, so to speak, work. Then there are 12-step groups, and on our website, we have a list of resources, but like PAA are specifically porn addiction 12-step groups. So, and then there's like SPAA and SCA. There's a whole bunch of 12-step groups, and they're all a little different, but the two, that I mentioned specifically are for porn addicts, and may be a good fit for you too. And you will find lots of porn addicts in the various drop-in groups that we have on our website. Now I'll take a breath because you have something to say.
I didn't know Tammy, you can never say enough. I mean, you are a font of knowledge for sure. What I was going to say is just a little bit about the difference between porn addicts and sex addicts is, I used to think, I really did, well, if you're a porn addict, why don't you just go to the sex addicts meetings? Why don't you just join the sex addict community? I mean, you have a problem with sex, compulsive sex, but you have to understand that many, many porn addicts have never had sex with another human being, or they spend 80% of their time in front of a screen. So the sex addicts meetings are most often about someone who is engaging in behavior, affairs, or sex workers, or all of that stuff. And honestly, and I mean this in the kindest way, but there are porn addicts who will sit in those sex addiction meetings and say, I wish that I had done some of those things, because all I do is sit in front of a screen. So they really felt that they needed their own place and their own books and their own. In fact, we started out, Tammy and I, Seeking Integrity started out with pure sex addiction work. I wrote Sex Addiction 101 and the workbook, I don't know, years ago, but it became very clear that there is a different population with different issues, and they go across the board. They have to do not only with sex out there like a sex addict, but emotional, sexual intimacy. I've had a lot of folks say, I can't get an erection. I'm not aroused. I have erectile dysfunction. No, I just had one of these folks, Tammy, or this man had told his wife when they first got together, I don't know, but I have an erection problem. And, all of this. He even went to a doctor and said, what's wrong with that? And the doctor said, well, you're this age and blah, blah, blah. The truth is, it never occurred to him that he was masturbating twice a day. And of course, in his intimate relationships, he was never going to get aroused. And so it is a different experience. And they do need, that's why we run 2 groups. That's why, and this is Tammy's fault, I'm writing a book on porn addiction, because it's really, really needed. And it's not the same as sex addiction. So there you go.
I think
It's
he
your
wanted
fault.
me to talk him out of writing the book. And I said, that's a
I'm
great idea.
done.
We really need this. Anyway,
I'm done.
so the
Okay.
next question is, and I love this question. So what percentage of addicts find strong recovery and stay sober? I realize there are many variables, but are there any statistics on this? So I have a minor in statistics.
Really? I didn't know
I
that.
do. I have a major in math. I used to teach math at the college level. So yeah, I know. I love math. I love statistics.
Ugh.
And guess what? I love recovery. And those two, I get this question all the
12
time.
steps, math.
Yeah. Well, no, I get this question all the time about the success of our treatment program. And I say this, for the guys that come to our program and do what they agree to do on their aftercare plan, I bet it's almost 100% of, that stay in recovery. And we hear all the time that it was life-changing. And then there's the people that are sitting on the fence or don't. And I've been in recovery meetings for a really long time, and I've seen people cycle in and out because it's the willingness. I had somebody that emailed the other day and they said, I've been doing this half-heartedly for 3 years. And guess what?
Right.
One of the things in 12-step is half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We have to make a decision. We can't straddle the fence. So that's a really long answer to any treatment program that says that they can give you statistics.
Right.
It's BS, because there's a certain percentage of people that are actually answering the phone. Addicts lie. So I wouldn't trust any of that. What's really important, is like, I'll share this little thing and then I promise I'll shut up. But when I was in treatment, I went to treatment and we were sitting in a room and they gave the statistics of like, the odds are one of you is going to remain sober. One of you is going to make it in recovery. And I remember being terrified of that. But you know what it did? It made me go, I want it to be me. Nothing against these other women, but I want it to be me. And so it was very motivating for me to defy the odds, so to speak. So it really comes down to is the person. It's not about all of the statistics, it's about this unique person. And I've been around a long time. I know lots of people who have.
Yes, you have.
No, I have, but they have chips bigger than mine,
Know.
that 50 and 60 years, like they're, so for those that are willing, recovery is the greatest gift. Now I'll turn it over to Dr. Rob. Sorry.
Well, I was trying to think of a comparison in the medical field. But I'll just say this. I wrote these 2 words down, and I think Cami mentioned one of them: motivation and commitment. It's interesting because a lot of men we're blessed that a lot of people come to our treatment program and seeking integrity. And I think they're fortunate because I think we have a pretty darn good staff and I love being there myself. But the 2 things that I cannot do for our clients or anyone in all these years I've been doing this is 1, motivation. I cannot make someone want to do something. And unfortunately, what motivates addicts is crisis. I'm going to lose my job. My spouse is going to leave me. Those kinds of things. Unfortunately, we don't generally give up the intensity of what we enjoy until we have to. That's short-term motivation, though. Short-term motivation is the crisis. Oh my God, this happened to me and I don't want it to happen again. It is motivation, and it does get people to treatment, and that's great. We give them all the tools, but the other side of it is commitment. What am I going to do with the things I was motivated? It got me here. What am I going to do with the things I got? And, one of the things that one of my mentors, Patrick Carnes, would say is 80% of the people who go through his treatment program, and I think ours is true, stay sober because they do the things that we tell them to do. We give them a list. We know them, do this, do that. We even sit down and say, this is what you should do Monday. This is what you do Tuesday. We go online and see what's in their where they live. We talk to their therapist. It is committing to that and sticking to it. And the worst thing, and when I worry about an addict, is when they say, oh, I don't want to do that night. And, I'd rather be doing this and rather be doing that. Well, good luck, because it is that commitment. We can talk ourselves out of anything. We can talk ourselves right out of sobriety. And part of that commitment is doing a lot of things I don't want to. I can't tell you how many nights I would have rather been home watching TV than going to some meeting, but it saved my life. So anyway, thanks, Tammy. I'm all in with you. And yeah.
Well, I was, when somebody comes to our program and they call on, like, so graduation is on Saturday, when they call on Monday and they're asking for more information and resources, yay. The people that go, well, I just went through treatment, so I'm going to take a few weeks off now. And we hear that. No, we hear that, where it's like, well, I've done all this intense work. Oh my goodness, now I need a vacation for me. Guess what? I know exactly what's going to happen with them. So, okay, next question. Go
I just
ahead.
have to say, we do have people who come in and they say, and we're ending treatment, they say, well, that was really amazing, and I'm going to get started on my program, but my family has a trip to the Bahamas next week. And I just think, that's a terrible idea. So
Yes.
yeah, it takes commitment and doing a lot of things you may not want to do.
Yes. Anything that I put in ahead of my recovery, I stand a chance. I stand a high probability of
Right.
losing. I know that. So, okay. I'm the betrayed partner. Discovery was a week ago, Dr. Rob. I'm in therapy and I have support of a few friends I'm trying to reach out to, but I do not know how to even coexist with my partner right now. My emotions are all over the place. When I do start talking, I just want to scream. Do I just continue with the silent treatment? I don't feel like I will ever be able to speak to him again without rage.
Well, a couple of things. Part of it depends on what he does, because please forgive me, I didn't mean it, I'm so sorry I hurt you. That just makes us angrier. And so when people do that, I want to say, shut up. That's all about you. Please forgive me. I'm so sorry I did this to you. I didn't mean to hurt you. Um, so what would make it easier for me to be less angry if, as I saw that person taking action, do they take one of our courses? Are they going to 12-step meetings? Are they seeing the right therapist? Are they going to the free support groups? Are they listening to the podcast? It's far too often, Tammy, this 90% of the time, when I do a consultation with a couple, and Tammy knows I do one-on-one consultations with couples, and I say, who set up the consultation? The spouse. Who got the person listening? Who's listening to the podcast? The spouse. Who got the books to the addict? The spouse. And so when I see you guys, we have a statement in therapy: we never work harder than the patient. And I say that to you. One of the things that would make me furious is if I'm out there trying to find the answers and the person who hurt me isn't. So part of what will reduce your rage to some degree is seeing them take responsibility for what they did, not with their words, but with their actions. As far as you're concerned, first of all, you don't have to stay in the same bed. You don't have to stay in the same room. You don't have to say, some of you can, why don't you go live at your friends or your mother's or whatever it is for a while? You don't have to have that person around you if you don't want to. Doesn't mean you're saying, let's get divorced or we're leaving each other. Tammy talks about boundaries, and boundaries are something I set up to take care of me. Not something I do to punish you, not something I do because I want you to do this or do that. I don't feel safe with you around. I don't feel comfortable with you around. So there is nothing. And by the way, I can't think of a partner whose emotions aren't all over the place. It's like you've just been hit by a truck, or one of your children has, and you don't know if they're going to live or die. Of course, your emotions are all over the place. By the way, if you think you're not going to speak without raging, stop speaking to him. Not a bad idea. So I was going to say one more thing. For those of you who are spouses, there are free support groups that we give, a whole bunch of them. And I really recommend, it's really important, and I mean this, to realize you're not alone. To sit and say, oh, that partner hates their spouse too, and that person feels betrayed. And especially, that's a really nice person who I think is attractive and smart, and this happened to them too. I think it just takes some of the sting off of how could they do this to me, when you realize it's been done to so many other things. Um, To me, the silent treatment is kind of like punishing someone else. And I think it's more about, because you said, do I continue the silent treatment? I won't speak to them. If you want to be silent, it's for you. You don't feel safe. You don't want to talk. I will say one more thing about rage. I don't want to do things that make me feel bad about me. And so, if I end up doing things to that person out of my anger that makes me feel bad about myself, then I don't think it's a good thing. You don't punish someone and then feel good about doing it because you feel good. You may feel self-satisfaction, I got them, but that's not the same as looking in the mirror and saying, I'm not somebody who wants to scream and yell and throw things. So, Tammy, I know you've got a lot to say about this. Would you just
I,
throw a few things out?
I will. I'm so glad you're here. And I know I don't
Hmm.
feel like I will ever be able to. And I know that's the
Right.
pain of the moment. And I promise you,
Grief.
regardless of what he does or doesn't do, you're here. You are resilient. There is lots of support. And, we emailed earlier, I recognize your name. And I want you to know that all of those resources, Dr. Rob mentioned the drop-in group, you have a link to that. You have those support tools. I had somebody the other day that reached out and he said, I've looked all over and yours are the Seeking Integrity are the only like legitimate resources. And I don't know that we're the only, but I know we have the best wealth of information and resources, free, low cost, all compiled to be a safe place, for you. So while I know how hard it is to be a member of this club that you never, ever, ever wanted to be in,
I never wanted to be a
yeah,
member of this, right?
yeah, we talk about healthy boundaries, on those drop-in groups. We talk about what they are and what they aren't. The work group I mentioned in the chat, there's a Betrayed Partners work group, and we talk about healthy boundaries. We talk about communication, and we talk about what is sex addiction. What is this that you're up against? And listen to the podcast. I've had so many
Hmm.
people
Hmm.
that have talked about just getting an understanding of kind of what they're up against, so to speak, but what Dr. Rob said about, like, if he says, I promise I'll never do that again, he will, so it really is, what are his
So
actions
will
showing
she, by
you?
the way, just
Yeah,
saying it. Hmm.
yes. But it's really, what are the actions what is the support that, that he's leaning into, so that you see that there's a glimmer, and it takes time, because you did get hit by the truck. He's known all along that he was acting out. You didn't know that. So you've had discovery, you got hit, and now there's a process. But I know so many people, including betrayed partners, that talk about, after that, they have a better relationship, more honest. They have gained trust, eyes wide open trust, but they understand that there is healing, there is the opportunity to do that. So I had one partner, because I said the comment about, this is the club that you don't want to join, and I get it. And she said, I wouldn't have picked it, but she said, I know myself better. I'm stronger than I ever thought. I have friends that I can lean into it, even at 2 o'clock in the morning. So she felt very empowered with what she had been through. And I promise you, you can get to a point like that where you don't hate that all this happened. But it just, the grief is real.
Right. That's what I wanted to say. And I appreciate that, Tammy. This is grief. What you're experiencing. And part of grief is rage. Part of grief is part of it is, I can't believe this is happening. Part of this is, I'm so depressed. Part of it is, this can't be true. And part of it is just rage. And, maybe you've lost somebody, we all do, or some really bad situation has happened. In the beginning, it's impossible to feel good about it. It's just impossible. But over time, this will become less painful, and it will become less painful when the person you care about is taking action, not saying I'm sorry. I just keep having to repeat that because we think, oh, I've been terrible. Please forgive me. Not a good idea.
Well, and Dr. Rob, you say all the time, and I parrot you on this, is nothing you did or didn't do caused this. Nothing you do or don't do is going to stop or change him. That said, the healthy boundaries are for your safety. And as Dr. Rob said a little bit ago, until the pain of, he said it a little differently, but until the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same, basically, until we're up against, like, oh my goodness, we actually have to change because this is really awful. we don't, because if we can always manipulate and gaslight and blame shift and make it so we don't really have to change, and we can keep doing all of these things that we've been doing, we'll do it. We'll lie to ourselves and you. So I'm glad you're here. I'm sorry you need to be here, but I'm glad you landed here, and please know we've got lots of support for you.
All right.
Okay. My partner is a porn addict. I'm well aware of the violence towards women in almost all online porn. It freaks me out quite a bit. The content hurts me, disgusts me, and makes me feel complicit in hurting an entire generation of women. Feels like a comment rather than a question. Anything to add to that?
Well, I think, I think there are many reasons to feel deep pains. For some people, it's moral and ethical. For some people, it's dignity of women. By the way, I have to say though, because it makes me a little concerned, there are a lot of men in porn. There are a lot of broken, hurt men who are appearing in porn. And, it isn't, there's also violence against men. It's not as frequent as women. I understand that, but I see a lot of men who are drug addicts, a lot of men who are desperate, who also show up in porn. And so just to say that, and I say that because I think, and I'm going to use this perspective from a feminist perspective, it's how could you be looking at viewing women like that? And I got to tell you, people look and view men like that too. And so it's not balanced, but I just want to put it out there. There are moral reasons to dislike it. There are ethical reasons. There are feminist reasons. There are personal reasons. I think, what about being complicit? I'm not sure how you as a partner are complicit. And maybe Tammy, you could speak to that.
Well,
And one more
I
thing,
was
it is an entire generation of women. There were people looking at magazines. There were people looking at videos. I mean, it isn't just this generation. It just comes in a more immediate, anonymous form. But
the
please, Tammy.
complicit. Yeah, the only thing with complicit, just what I said a minute ago, that you say all the time, is nothing you did or didn't do caused this. So you were not complicit in this, unless you were sitting down with him and saying yes, let's, then you would be part of it. But otherwise, if it's, as most people, it's a whole secret life. Nothing you did or didn't do caused this. So
Right.
and you have
Oh,
enough
no,
to deal with just on your own with your relationship. So worrying about, all of these other people. Yes, there's and people that work to help sex workers and things. I honor their work, but you know what? My plate is full working, on helping people with addiction
right.
that want help to change, and the betrayed partners, who are, struggling.
And I just want to also say, because I have empathy for these folks, some people do this because they have to take care of their children. They don't have resources. They want to go to school and they'll never get to school. Some people put themselves in a situation voluntarily because they want something in life, or they want to hold on to something that, how do they feed their kids? How do they survive drug addiction? It is demeaning. And I don't hate the victim, because some people are just doing the best they can. And I just want to say that.
My husband overworks himself, leaving no time to work his program. I said a little bit ago, whatever you put ahead of it. He has no time to journal and do any self work. He says he doesn't like recovery work because it feels like a chore. He says he has to provide for the family, but I work full time too, and we can budget. He gets so tired, he skips meetings and says taking care of the family comes first, but it leaves no time for anything else.
So there's not a direct question in there, but I have an answer. Your husband is full of shit. Excuse my language. He has excuses why. And I want to put it this way. His choices are coming before the family, before you. It isn't just, I don't want to do that. That's the behavior, going to meetings, getting support. That's the action. But what that action does is it makes me a better person. It makes me a better father. It makes me a better husband, whatever that is. And so really what he's saying is, I don't want to be more involved, more engaged. I don't want to hurt you less. I want to do what I want to do. And so, of course, like I said, I would rather watch TV than go to a meeting, but it isn't about going to the meeting. The meaning is the path, the road to my being a more loving partner. And so when this person says it's a chore, you're right. It's a chore. Healing is a chore. But do you choose that because you want to be a better person to the people you love? And so that's how I would think about it is, If this is not his priority, then what is he saying to you about his family? What is he saying to you about you? Are you a priority? Because that's really the underlying message. I don't have time for you. I would rather spend time doing what I want. And I think that's how I would look at it. Take the meeting away and putting it into, you don't have time. You're not taking the time to make our relationship better. So that's how I would look at that.
So one of the assessments that the guys that come to our treatment program take before they come, because we look at things holistically, is about money and work. And I mentioned it a bit ago. Anything that I prioritize above my recovery, I will lose. So I'm going to flip this a little bit for you. What are you doing for a healthy boundary for you? It's like if he has, if he's prioritizing the family, to me, he could lose the family because he's not prioritizing this. And
Right.
and work is one of those where you get, oh, you're such a good worker. You get all of these good feelings.
Kudos.
And guess what? There's difficulty in recovery work. There's difficulty in changing. There's difficulty in navigating a family
Right.
that has been fractured by addiction. So yeah, like I can get all these, ooh, over here. So to me, what do you need to do to shore up your healthy boundaries? Because this feels like you need to take care of you and the kids. And I also don't hear that he's going to, like Dr. Rob talks all the time about accountability. The therapy work for an addict is accountability. We have to learn to do things differently. So,
Motivation,
therapy,
commitment.
right? 12-step, I mean, all of those things. And one more thing, and then I promise we'll move on. But when people come into the program, people will go, how long do I have to come to the meetings? And you know what the standard answer is? Until you want to. And you know what? I go see my friends at meetings. I always feel better going to a meeting. So it shifted to a chore to, this is where I settle in. If I'm having a bad day, or even if I'm having a good day, but if I'm having I'm off, you know what? I go sit in a meeting, and just as the meeting starts, everything shifts for me. It's where I settle and get grounded and things like that. And I promise, I sound like you, Dr. Rob. One more thing, because he talks about the journaling and self-work. Nice, but it really is. We don't heal by ourselves. If we could read a book or just journal and feel better, that's not it. It is attachment. It is accountability. We need the rest of the other people in groups, 12-step, in our therapy groups, in treatment groups. That's where we heal. This is all in my head, and I'll journal some, or I'll listen to a podcast. It's all that passive stuff. It doesn't cut it. So.
Well, and I want to add, what is his focus? Because I want the people I love to feel better. And what he's saying is, I don't have time to make you feel better because I want to do what I want to do. And even if that's work, and I say, well, I'm making more money, or I'm helping the family, or I've had people say, well, I've had even non-sex addicts say, well, what's the big deal? I'm looking at porn. I don't see the problem with it. It's not this or that. And it's a problem for the spouse. And my answer is, well, porn may be good or bad or right or wrong. That is the issue. Your spouse is upset. How are you managing how are you putting the priority on your relationship rather than on fighting for what you want? So, and that includes work. And Tammy's right. Oh, you're working so hard and great, and you're making extra money. And that'd be great in a different set of circumstances. But this person has another priority that they're not paying attention to. I need to step off for 1 second, but I can hear. So keep going.
I'm the betrayer. I'm struggling with being consistently vulnerable and open with my wife to the depth of what she feels she needs. I've come a long way, but still have a ways to go. How can I get there quicker? Or do you have any advice for the both of us? We're both here. Thank you. I'm glad you're both here. And it is navigating it is navigating what I need and what I'm able to do, and having a vision for, we're going to get there. John Taylor did a great webinar. This was a while back, but a partner said, this is what I need, and I have a vision, and I'm going to hold that vision while you do the work until we can get there. And I thought that was great. And I have shared, Dr. Rob did a fantastic podcast with Dr. Stan Tatkin called We Do. And it's about,
he wrote a book called We Do.
He did too. Yes. But yes, he did. And the book would be great too, but start with the podcast. If we have a vision for, if I put the relationship first, then my individual stuff is I can navigate that. Shame often comes up. I mean, I cannot possibly consistently be vulnerable. I mean, like, oh my gosh, I'd be worn out. I don't have the bandwidth to do that. So I need some self-care. I need to take care of myself, and then I'll, show up in different ways, go back to my meetings. So to me, it's a journey. You're not going to do it perfectly. You're not going to consistently always be vulnerable and Mr. Empathy and perfect, but on the other hand,
I
to
hope
the
not.
partner, if you start to see like he's really trying, and like I have some hope for the future, you know, he'll never be like your girlfriends where they show up and they're there for you. That just won't happen. On the other hand, but if you see him showing up differently, I hear this all the time that like we're making progress. And what I hear from this person that wrote this is, we're making progress. And hopefully both of you are looking at, there's where we were, and wow, we're here, and we have a vision for the future, and we're navigating that. But the couples healing from betrayal work group that I mentioned starts in September. That would be fantastic for both of you. For the addict, if you haven't taken Why Men Struggle to Love, that would be a really good one.
Well,
And
wait,
Out of the
I want to
Doghouse.
interrupt for just 1 second.
Uh-huh.
I wrote a book about this, and I don't mean to be self-focused, but I wrote a book for men who don't understand how to be empathic and respond to a partner that they've cheated on. Thank you, Tammy, for letting me interrupt. I appreciate that. We teach a course called Out of the Doghouse. I wrote a book called Out of the Doghouse. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mute you just
No,
because I
no.
interrupted you.
I was doing no, I said, I was just saying, and Out of the Doghouse, which is, we're saying the same thing. Both of those work groups would be great for you. And the link is in the chat, but yes, please
And
tell
read the
more about
book.
your
I
book.
make
12
50
cents.
cents. No,
Oh,
I
you
make
make
about
50 cents
25.
now.
All right. Well, it depends on the book, but I made 12 cents selling a book because it all goes to the publisher. It's like someone who creates music and it all goes to the company. So if you think you're enriching me or I'm selling books when I sit here, it's because it is my best-selling book because men in general do not understand what women go through when they're betrayed. And I said to them in the book very directly, as a man, you want it to get better, this is what you have to do. You don't want to do it, fine, that your relationship is, and what I mean is fall on your sword, be apologetic, don't defend yourself, be honest, take the anger, you deserve it. Finding ways to show your partner, not ask them for forgiveness, but show them that you understand what they've been through. And I did write a book about this, and we did create a course for it. Now, I will say this, many of the men and women I work with, well, men, because that's a men's course, they want to read the book and say, oh, the first thing I want to do is jump into forgiveness and jump into and that ain't it. The first thing they should do is look at their own behavior, read or do something about sex addiction, read or do something about porn addiction. Otherwise, uh, you're lying. You're saying, I feel really sorry for what I did to you, but I'm still doing it to you. So, anyway, we could say a lot about that. And Tammy, I just wanted to say something about the book. So I felt it was coming. I'm like, no, I want to say that.
No,
So I'm
it's
just
all
being
good.
honest.
It's
Thank
all
you.
good. But there's a work group, and I don't remember when the next one starts. I'll look at it. But actually, you guys look it up. It's click. You can click on the link.
Right.
Okay. I'm the betrayed nearly 43 years off and on. PA says I abandoned him in marriage every time I had no sex. I abandoned him. Yes. Last discovery, March 22nd. He says he's willing to do all that I ask, but as soon as I say no sex, he pulls it all back and says we don't have a marriage and such. This happens almost daily, trying to do the work and heal and self-care, but it seems he is addicted to me. He also claims to have PGAD. Do you know what that means? If I was emphatic, I would help. Crazy, empathetic, good. I don't know,
I have
but
no,
let's.
it doesn't matter because the point
Yeah,
is he's saying, look at me, look at poor me, I'm playing the victim. Well, why can't I have some empathy from you? Because after all, I have problems too. And what I would respond with is shut the F up, but that's just me. But anyway, please, please give some thoughts about this. Oh, well, I want to say some things about this. This is really unhealthy for you. If you allow yourself to turn to this person who has deeply hurt you and begin to feel badly for their martyrdom, for their victim, they're trying to, in a narcissistic way, say, well, I'm sorry you feel bad, but look at me, how bad I feel. why would you want to have sex with this person? Who knows? First of all, I will say until the day I die, why would you want to have sex with someone you don't trust? Why would you want to have sex? And if partners want to have sex with someone who's just betrayed them, in my experience, it's for the wrong reason. You're doing it to feel closer to them. You're doing it because you're afraid they're going to act out again. You're doing it because you want to make sure they still love you, whatever. And those are all the wrong reasons. You have to follow what you feel. So he is willing to do all I ask, but as soon as I say no sex, he pulls it all back, that we don't have a marriage. You didn't have a marriage when he decided to cheat and lie and act out. That's when your marriage ended. So it just feels like this feels very, this disturbs me a lot. I think these are all the symptoms all together of what's so painful for spouses when we are not doing our job, when we want to. I'd much rather you felt sorry for me than angry with me. I'd much rather put the blame on you than take responsibility. And this is what addicts do. We externalize. We say, you're the problem. This is the problem. That's the problem. You know, I drink because my job is difficult. I drink because my kids are demanding all. No, you drink because you want to drink. And you are not. In fact, let me say this, and I ask every spouse I work with to write this down. So spouses, I'm going to take a minute and tell you to write this down. Take a piece of paper or take your pad out and write this down. Number one, there is nothing I have ever done. There is nothing I have ever done. Number two, there is nothing I am doing now. So there's nothing I have ever done. There is nothing I am doing now. And number three, there's nothing that I will ever do to make them act out. There is nothing I've ever done. There's nothing I'm doing now. And there is nothing I will ever do to make, you can make someone miserable. You can make them disappointed. You can make them angry, but there are a lot of things they can do, but blame you and then go have sex with other people or rage at you. That's just not okay. So there is nothing, I want to say, every spouse, you are not responsible for my behavior ever. You know, someone asked, is it a choice? Yes, it is on some level my choice. And I blame you. I deserve to do this because look how you're treating me and you don't have empathy. And well, that's a lot easier than my saying, I'm doing crappy things, you know, and I'm hurting other people. That's just, you know, pointing the finger out there so I don't have to feel bad about it. So I'm sorry I'm talking too much, but there's nothing I've ever done. There's nothing I'm doing now. And there's nothing nothing I will ever do. I've had partners cry when they hear those words because it's so hard to not feel responsible when you're so close to someone and they're blaming you. So anyway, yeah, I don't know what
The
PGAD was, but I don't
I don't
care.
either. I don't either. But the only thing I'm going to add is healthy boundaries for you. And here's the other one more
Can
thing.
you explain that? Because I don't know that
I
everybody,
will.
what do you mean by healthy boundaries for you?
I'm going to
Good.
tell you in a moment. But I'm going like, and quit talking about this. If this is the daily thing, it's like, so my healthy boundary would be, so we talk about physical boundaries. What do I need for my physical safety? And it's not you're doing this. And so therefore it's like for my physical safety, just like I need food and water and sleep, you know, these are the things that I need. So physical safety, emotional safety, financial safety, and I say spiritual safety. One of my friends, Matt Wheeler, talks about relational safety. However you want to do it, those are the four that I talk about, but those are for my safety. I need this. If you are not able to do that, then I'm going to take care of myself, and we may be more distant because your behaviors are not showing me that you are safe right now. Now, I mentioned the We Do book and podcast. If you're doing things that move the relationship together, guess what? Then you're together. But I would invite you to get off. You're doing I call it the negative two-step. It's a country line dance. So where you're doing the negative two-step. I'm doing this. You do this and I do this. And then you do this and I do this. And it's horrible every single time. And it's the same thing every single time. So if you just jump off that dance floor and go, I'm going to take care of me. And you can be, blaming me and whatever, but I'm going to go have coffee with my girlfriend, whatever. I'm going to call somebody who's safe, I'm going to go take care of me because, it's in brokenness, but I hear somebody who is not willing to step into anything. Dr. Rob talked about willingness and commitment, and I don't hear any willingness or commitment. I hear the same old pattern over and over again. So I would invite you to step off. Okay. Next question. Oops. Cancel. Yeah, sorry. Okay. The next question is, As an addict in recovery, returning to social circles has been rather difficult. I've been trying to work towards a healthier life. And when I return to friends that I've had such a long time, I can't help but see how massively porn and sex addiction has affected them as well. I've cut friends off due to their internalized and even blatant misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, all the phobias, among other difficult things. I want to be able to engage in healthy community and engage in healthy conversations to promote a life without these things. But now I can't make that change for them. What are some ways to navigate around this?
I'm gonna start, Tammy. I'm gonna read this a couple of times. I really want to make
Okay.
sure I understand.
So when I had, let's say that the friends that I was hanging out towards the end of my addiction career were people that were in a different place than my values really, aligned with. And as part of my recovery, I had to choose who I chose new friends. Guess what? When I talk about going to 12 step, they're my friends. Now, some of them I hang out with beyond the meetings, and some of them are just in the meetings, and that's okay. But I had to make a change. I didn't hang out in the same locations. I didn't do whatever. And so a healthy boundary for you is maybe seeing some maybe there are some that you do, and you can say, I'm not comfortable talking about those topics. I'm taking care of me. So do we, if we can have these conversations or go do this activity in a way that's meaningful for you, great. But otherwise, my recovery, my serenity comes first. I absolutely have to take care of me, and those would be not safe people. But you weren't ready. If anybody had tried to tell you stuff when you weren't ready, you weren't. You wouldn't have. So trying to convert somebody isn't going to help. You taking care of you.
Yeah, what I wanted to say to you was one of the things that we talk about, well, I talk about it in treatment, depending on the conference or on the lecture we're giving, is I have an A list, a B list, and a C list. And I look at who makes me feel safe, who do I love, who do I enjoy, who makes me feel, who shares my values. And those people are on my A list. And those are the people I will share with, I will spend time with, I will enjoy, I will open up to completely. And then there's a B list, which are people I enjoy, but I feel a little uncomfortable around them and a little bit guarded, and I don't really feel that they see me. And so, I may not be as open, but I really enjoy being with them. And the C list might be people that I really cared about and enjoyed, but I can't be with them anymore because it doesn't fill my soul. It doesn't make me feel good. And, this is also a difficult question, I want to say, because, Tammy and I have different beliefs about a whole bunch of things, and I'm not going to say what they are, but they're big things, have to do with politics and religion and all those things. We have different views, and I value and I love her.
Mm-hmm,
We have a
mm-hmm,
great relationship. We work together extremely well. We don't talk about that, and I do think, though, in terms of a deep love for humanity and a commitment to kindness and valuing everyone, I think we share that. And so it isn't necessarily I'm uncomfortable with those people, or I don't feel really good about that group of people because I don't understand them. But it's, do you? I was talking to a religious group recently, and I was doing a lecture for them, or I was doing a TV show or something like that.
yes, it was a TV
And
show. Yes.
and we were talking about the values of religion in the church. And, what I said was, I value the troubled person as much as I do the person who looks good. And I think that our values and who I believe in, what I believe has to do with a deeper issue than what people do. I'm interested in who they are, not what they do. That's important to me. Um, I have learned, I have grown as a person. There are things that I did, and I'll just say this, there are things that I did not understand about race. And then I talked to some of my friends who were of that particular, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't understand that. So it doesn't mean that I was bad or wrong, or it's just that I was ignorant. And so, I think you have to look at people who are willing to grow and people who have a deep sense of humanity and who care deeply about how they affect other people. And that's very different than someone who has a very fixed opinion, and they don't really, and they rule people out for this and rule people out for that. So I think you have to look at people holistically and not necessarily about this belief or that belief. And there are some people who whose sense of values related to other human beings I just don't agree with and I can't feel good about. And that's very different than we don't understand different issues or agree. So anyway, is that reasonably? That was a little
Yeah,
philosophical.
well, yeah, but so my recovery comes first. So I need to be safe, and I don't need to be involved in things that are going to take me away from that. That's my primary. But yeah, I mean, I've got friends all over the place, and I love what Dr. Rob said. They're different layers, and I'll spend more time with people who are safe for me. That's, you know. But yeah, anyway, okay. So I put a link in, and I think that was the answer to the next question. When will sex addiction
What?
be seen as a mental disorder by the DSM-6?
So the DSM-6 is the guide, the DSM, the diagnostic DS, the Diagnostic and Statistical
Statistical.
Manual
Uh-huh.
for
It
mental
came
health,
up twice.
mental health disorders. And so what it is, it's our guide to a couple of things. The DSM tells me what is depression. And it says, you know, and it gives me 6 or 8 criteria so that if I'm talking to Tammy about depression, we know we're talking about the exact same thing because this person has 5 out of 6. Not, I think I know what depression is. No, it's that. And it's very criteria based. It doesn't talk about where things come from, but it does diagnose them. The explanation of mental disorders in the United States, this book, DSM, does not include anything about compulsive sexual behavior. We are not at that point yet. I think as a country, it's very difficult to talk about sex. I don't know if you're aware of this, but I think only 20 states out of 50 provide sex education at all. And 12 of those 50 require parental permission. So I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying we don't educate. We don't think about this. We see it in all kinds of ways other than a simple health issue. There are many reasons why it isn't in American mental health diagnosis yet. But what I asked Tammy to do was to put up information about international statistical and diagnostic manuals. So basically, outside of North America, the US and Canada, everybody else uses this other manual called the ICD and the International Diagnostic Manual. So I think we will get there, but we look at different diagnoses. Sorry, we look at different diagnostic manuals to make different decisions. In other parts of the world, it is a diagnosis. So, and let me say one more thing. It is never going to be called sex addiction. Never. In this other manual, it's called compulsive sexual behavior disorder, CSBD. It will never be called addiction in our manuals or there. And let me explain why. Therapists and psychiatrists like fancy names for things. Lord knows why, but they're ivory tower. And one of the things I do like about my work is it's clear and it's not hard to read and it isn't fancy schmancy. But in any case, if you think about people who are alcoholic or drug addicts, if you look in these manuals, it says substance use disorder, SUD. Well, I don't think anyone goes to a 12-step meeting and raises their hand and say, hi, I have a substance use disorder. They say I'm an alcoholic or I'm a drug addict. And so it's the same thing. No one goes to a 12-step meeting for sex addiction and says, hi, I have a compulsive sexual behavior disorder. They say sex addict. So there will never be a diagnosis for sex addiction because the mucky mucks and the people in the ivory towers have words that they don't like the word addiction. And there are other ways that they have to describe it. But when you look at the criteria and the symptoms, it's exactly the same. So the language that we use as regular folks may not be the same language that is used by some psychiatrists, but the reality is there already is a diagnosis in most of the world, and we will get one, but you will never see it called sex addiction. That was pretty good. You've
That
heard
was
me teach
very
that,
good.
Tammy.
Well, yeah,
That
I
was
have,
good.
but yeah, and the substance use disorder. So you have to stick for the next one because it's from a first timer here. I'm the partner of a lust addict, porn addicts SA. My SA has had an addiction and compulsive behaviors for most of his life. We've been together for 9 years, and I've known of his issues fairly early on. Couples counseling is very difficult to find in my area, as well as therapists that specialize with sex addiction. My essay acknowledges his addiction, but will avoid accountability and my anxiety around his behavior. How will we begin this journey of recovery, and how do I deal with the anger, rage, and resentment? This is eating me alive.
Tammy, you get these phone calls every day. And let me just say, by the way, I want to say it. Tammy is, and I'm going to say it, Tammy's the resource queen, in my opinion. If you're looking for a group, if you're looking for an organization, if you're looking for treatment, if you're looking for a good therapist, if you're looking for a group, everything goes through Tammy. And I really mean that. And when I recommend, when someone says, I'm looking for a good recommendation for a therapist in Ohio, or I want to know where there's a good support group in New York, Tammy, you can write her, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com, and she put it in the chat. We don't get any money from that. You know, we don't get kickbacks from therapists, but we want people to get the right information. And so you can always write Tammy and say, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. I live in this place. Who should I go see? It's not very difficult to understand what to do. If you had diabetes, you know, if I had diabetes, I would want to go to a book. I would want to go to a support group. I would want to talk to my doctor. I might want to go to, you know, a diabetes organization online. And so I don't understand it. It doesn't seem that difficult. If I had a problem with lust, sex, porn addiction, I would say, what can I read about this? Who can I talk to about this? How can I learn about this? If you take the sex part out, or even the addiction part out, if you're motivated to learn about a disorder, you can find information about it. So Tammy can guide you, I think, toward counselors and therapists. You know, I have this experience a lot. I know we have to stop in a minute, and it disappoints me greatly, and it's just the way it is. Therapists who have the moniker CSAT after their name, it's very important that people, a certified sex addiction therapist, it's a great training. It's really important that we have it. It tells you that this person understands the issue, but it doesn't teach people how to do this kind of therapy. And I just talked to a couple in a consultation that I did. They fired the therapist because he was nice and he was kind, but he didn't confront. He didn't hold the person accountable. He didn't challenge. It was more like, how was your day and what's going on with you, and tell me about your mother. That's not what this kind of therapy is. And one of the things I think Tammy and I do very well is we look for the people. And I do a support group for therapists every week to try to educate them and support them in understanding not just what is the work, but what is the stance? Where do I need to come from? Because it's very different. You know, regular therapy is about, I want to nurture you, I want to support you, well, we do that too, but we do it in a much more challenging, much more confrontive, much more educational way. And most therapists are not trained to do that. So if I was, number one, I said this before, you want to deal with your rage, your anger, and resentment, go get support for that. You don't want to act in ways that leave you feeling bad about yourself. And if we haven't said it before, we have 14 to 20 free support groups on Seeking Integrity, and you can find betrayed partners groups where you can hear people who are ahead of you and they've dealt with their rage. You'll hear people who are just beginning to deal with it. And you can talk to each other in those groups, and you can get email and all of that from each other, unlike this. So yes, it's eating you alive. What would make me, and why wouldn't it? But what would make me feel better is if the partner, the person I love, the addict, was making their own strides toward learning about this, that I wasn't hand feeding them. In fact, I hope they're here. You know, I hope you're not sitting here by yourself and asking these questions. I hope your partner is here saying, I want to learn about this too. They should be. Well, you know, and I just say, seeing that person take responsibility for their problem and begin to move forward with what they have to do toward change, that is such a relief to a spouse and a partner. Okay, I'm not alone with this. You're taking responsibility, and I see you taking action. Go ahead, Tammy. You were going to say something about this, and then
No,
we
the
need to go
only
feed our
thing I know,
dogs.
the only thing I was going to say is I hope that they're not here. I hope he's in the Sex Addiction 101 part 1 that started at 4 p.m. Pacific time today. I mean, that would be optimal, that, oh, I'm taking action, I'm doing something. And if he didn't, we have lots of guys that missed the first week. And so email me, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com, and I'll give you details of that. But that would be a good step. And guess what? There's a drop-in group tomorrow for him. There's another one for betrayed partners. There's resources. So check them out on our site. We have support. We have resources. I'm sorry that you just had found out, but here's the deal. You're here. We have resources. There is healing. There is hope. And we're happy to give you the support that you need. And so sorry that we didn't get to the other questions. We will next week. If just join early and join early and type them in early. It is what it is. Thanks, everybody. Bye, Dr. Rob.
We do our best. That's all I can say. Thank you, Tammy, so much.
And it's free. Bye.